Hello, everybody. My name is Dratnos, and today we have news about the Mage Tower, which is a Blizzard post that says, "Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for your ongoing feedback about the Mage Tower. We are currently evaluating the data regarding Mage Tower success rates," which I would love to see that data if it were publicly available. That would be very cool. And we have identified that some of the challenges for certain specs are more difficult than intended. We will return once we have more information to provide you on what changes we have planned to bring those specializations more in line with the rest. So this effectively confirms that there are going to be changes made, right? They're not saying they'll return on whether or not they decide to make changes. They're saying we'll return once we decide what changes are going to be made. There's also notably not a time scale posted here. So there's a lot of different things they could end up doing. First of all, I think it's worth noting that they have highlighted the ones that are harder than the others as being the ones that are the problem versus the ones that are, say, quite a bit easier than the others. Stuff like the Fury Warrior challenge, for instance, that's quite easy compared to, I would say there's some that are quite easy. Then there's sort of a pretty difficult middle of the pack. And then there's some that are like Mythic Raid boss difficulty, very quite hard indeed. Many hours of progression for good players at the top. So I think it does make sense to take a swing at those. I did enjoy, though, the difficulty of the ones that I've done so far, and I will look to complete as many as possible before these nerfs come out. I don't know. Mage Tower, it's an interesting one, because I did like the difficulty, but there are some decisions surrounding it that are so confusing to me. For instance, the fact that you don't get to use your Covenant ability, you don't get to use your Soul Binds, you don't get to use your Conduits, but you do get to use sockets on gear, you do get to use trinkets, you do get to use the stat budget of the items that you're wearing, and in some cases, for some specs, the optimal stats are quite different when you have like a no Covenant stuff going on, and none of that extra stuff, interfacing with your character, none of those extra stat procs coming in. So it's strange because they took away these big elements of like player power that you have, which I like, but then they didn't go all the way and like just give us a template character to do it with, right? There's still some elements of like gear choices that are coming in. You can still use flasks and food and weird old potions to get a little bit of extra value in there. And it just seems weird to me to let those through when you've gone through the very jarring step of making our rotation abilities not the same as in the rest of the content in the game right now, right? Taking away the Covenant stuff. So I think that they've landed in sort of a middle ground that's worse than either going all the way in either direction, either letting us have our Covenant abilities and balancing around them and making it so our characters work as they do in other forms of content. There are some good arguments for doing it that way, right? Where it's like, in something that's supposed to test our mastery, the thing we've mastered and we've been mastering in the rest of the game is these specs in the Shadowlands state that they're in, right? The other option is to try and make it a timeless mode that every time time walking comes back, it doesn't have to see any work. But I think a challenge of that, which they've gone for a little bit, first off, it's still like there's going to just be weird trinkets that come out in a new tier. And second off, every expansion release, classes get reworked pretty dramatically, right? Warriors since Legion, they've had Spell Reflect added, they've had all these talent rows get juggled around, different parts of kits become core versus not becoming core. And so by making it, by kind of trying to lock in the Mage Tower difficulty at this sort of class baseline, they are adding this extra thing that they're going to have to think about, right? Otherwise, in future, it could just be like, oh, well, we accidentally, gave Guardian Druids this ability that doubles the range of this thing or whatever, or it does a bunch of damage, and all of a sudden their time-walking Mage Tower DPS has gone up by 50%, and this challenge is way easier. Or by contrast, something could get taken out of a kit, get moved around in a kit, and a challenge can get way harder in the future. And I don't know, it's a tough thing to aim for, right? The sort of this half measure of giving us some elements of the characters that change and grow and we can choose, but some elements are like locked and stripped out. I think it's going to be really hard to keep that balance good going forward. And I do think it would have been much better to just go all in, give us like a fixed template character, maybe even lock that so that it wouldn't change from expansion to expansion, and you just be playing like, say, the Legion version, like a Legion template character with the Legion artifact traits and stuff, and Legion legendary of whatever they thought, whatever worked for the template, right? And it's like, hey, go relive what this was like in Legion with a character that we have designed to be the appropriate level of challenge, and then we just never have to touch that again, right? Or just let us use our current expansion characters as is. I think either of those would have been better. Anyways, the other thing that's interesting about this is, when are the nerfs going to come? There's some speculation that they would leave it for these 2 weeks. With the amount of negative feedback that I've been seeing, I doubt that this is going to make it to the end of this time walking period without some of the challenges getting seriously nerfed. I do think a weakness of the Mage Tower, especially with that jarring nature of like having to learn a different spec because you don't have all your Shadowlands borrowed power, is the 2 week period. I really think just fundamentally the 2 week nature, and then soon it'll be 1 week, right? It's only 2 weeks this time, and it'll be 1 week for future Mage Towers. I really think that they should go back to the drawing board entirely on that paradigm for time walking in general, but especially for the Mage Tower. I think that a really good place for Mage Tower to land is something like the Proving Grounds were in MoP, where it's just sort of always there. You can go, you could, do it to develop your skills on a spec and do a hard challenge on a spec by yourself without needing anybody else around. Maybe get some cosmetic, like there was a title, right? There was those proven defender titles from back in those Proving Grounds, and it's like always there, always something you could go do, a nice hard bit of single player content. But they haven't chosen to do that, which means with the way they have it implemented right now, let me make some predictions on what will happen rather than me just kind of whining about what I wish they had done instead of what they are doing. With the current state of the game, my prediction is we will see a set of nerfs to the Mage Towers before the end of the work week. Like before they will go live by Friday in America, and they will be probably nerfs to several of the tank and healer challenges, or just those, like maybe not even spec specific, just to those challenges entirely, and some of like Xylem, maybe the Athlock one, those challenges, and then maybe they'll come back and hit them with another round of nerfs on the weekly reset. But I think that their time is sort of the essence here if they want to push these nerfs before the period is over. So I think there's a good chance we will see more on this even in the next 24 hours. Anyways, this is my video about the Mage Tower. I have really enjoyed it despite all of those, I would say, unforced errors with the implementation of it this time. I've still really had a good time. I'd recommend people go check it out and go in, bash your head against it. It is quite rewarding to beat the harder ones in the state they're in right now. So I would recommend people go and try and get that done pre-nerf. It's sort of the same thing as Mythic Raiding, right? There's this experience of like fighting a boss where you're like, wow, this is really hard. And then a couple weeks later, Blizzard nerfs it, but you've already killed it, and you're like, okay, I get why you're nerfing this, but I'm really glad I killed it before you did. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.